Hey there, pithy listeners. We're back.
Sorry for the disappearing act, folks. Our brains decided to take an impromptu vacation without warning us, but fear not. We are re-energized with coffee and Caroline's disgusting energy drinks, but we are ready.
We are back to finish the life and legend of Eleanor of Aquitaine.
What an odyssey.
Rude. You're listening to the Pithy Chronicle. History with a bite. I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erica. And we bring you history's dirtiest deeds, dripping with sarcasm.
Are you hungry yet?
Hey there, pithy listeners. I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erica.
And today we are picking up with Eleanor's adventures. She was the Duchess of Aquitaine, then the Queen of France, and she fled at the end of our last episode back to Aquitaine, divorcing the King of France, Louis VII, and maybe setting out on her own? Or was there something else in store?
I feel like there's something else.
Can you clean the castle before we continue?
Why, yes, I can. In fact, I deep cleaned my house today. My floors shine like that rock crystal vase that Eleanor got Louis for their wedding.
And then he gave to the church immediately.
I'm not giving my floors to the church. They're too clean. I worked too hard on them.
Fair enough.
The Pithy Chronicle is on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and newly on YouTube. Writing a review or giving us a rating is the best way for you to help us get found and continue to dish that historical hot goss. If you would like to support us with some cash money, you can keep us hot, keep us hydrated by buying us a coffee at buyusacoffee.com/The Pithy Chronicle. But if you're into long-term relationships, hit us up on Patreon for extra content and episodes delivered to your inbox. Now, back to the show.
Eleanor and Louis's divorce, which was due to a just now realized consanguinity issue.
I'm shocked.
Despite the Pope's promise that, it was all cool. Their divorce might have been amicable, but Eleanor must have had the most ironclad prenup because they parted ways exactly as they came into the marriage.
It was part of her dad's will that...
Yeah, it was a prenup. Yeah. I wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
That was how it was stated.
Is this the first prenup ever?
I don't know. Doubtful. You gotta know they had one in ancient Greece.
Rome, definitely. Livia Drusilla.
Definitely, yeah. Louis lost a lot. Aquitaine, as we've discussed, was way bigger than his little Paris Plus situation. But Eleanor lost her two daughters, who stayed with their dad and were considered legitimate still, because the marriage had been, quote, in good faith.
That is the biggest eye roll.
So Eleanor is now back to the Duchess of Aquitaine.
I love it.
And she's now in control, sort of. Though if she believed she'd be allowed to stay single and ready to rule her duchy, then she quickly learned otherwise, as she barely escaped, not one, but two attempted kidnappings on her journey from Paris/married life to Aquitaine.
She did evade two planned abductions, the first from Theobald of Blois, and
oh my god,
he ends up marrying her daughter. Plot twist. And then, also incest adjacent, the second potential abductor was Geoffrey Plantagenet, who goes on to become her brother-in-law. So,
she was prime picking for them.
Yeah, it's just so juicy.
It's open season. She is the greatest heiress of the Middle Ages. She is the French bachelorette, and everyone wants her and or her lands.
She's also, like you said, beautiful, and the sexual prowess at the court of Aquitaine.
Yeah.
Pluses
she
all
wants
around.
Something. She wants life. And now she is, in fact, much older than she was the last time she was a
30.
sole Duchess of Aquitaine.
She's 30. She's not that old.
No, but she's doubled in age from when she got married.
And I know that's middle-aged for them.
It's not for her. She's going to live to a ripe old age.
Not for her, but in the Middle Ages it is.
She has literally doubled in age. So she comes back a wiser Duchess. And Eleanor should technically, therefore, get to choose her own husband.
She has to prevent more abduction attempts. Let's get it wifed up.
Exactly. It's gross, but it's true. I mean, if you think back to Mary, Queen of Scots, who technically comes later than her, but I just meant we've already discussed her. Her third husband may or may not have raped her in order to force her into marriage for the preservation of her good name. It's the same idea here. She will always be in danger if she is not, quote unquote, claimed.
Blech.
I'm sure she'd agree with you as well. Our Eleanor chose Henry FitzEmpress.
Which means Henry, son of Empress.
Indeed. And he was, though it's a little odd for the time period to have the mother be the son of the direct object rather than the father. So that is kind of interesting that they focused his name on his mother's title, not his father's.
Well, his father's kind of sucks, but yes, it is more commonly Fitzroy, son of the king, or Fitzwilliam, son of William.
Exactly. But Henry's mom...
Special case.
Was that special case, yeah. And we've met her before. Go, Erica. This is your person.
The Empress Matilda!
Daughter of King Henry I of England, widow of Henry V, Holy Roman Emperor, and that's why he gets that Empress.
Mom of Henry, Eleanor's new beau. She's surrounded by Henrys.
Yes. After Emperor Henry V died, Matilda found, unhappily, that her dad's next plan was to marry her off to Geoffrey Plantagenet, Count of Anjou. And the name Plantagenet will come back up in history a few hundred years later with this future couple's future offspring as a way to link it back to the Plantagenet family lore.
A lore we have discussed in at least 3 episodes, but let me tell you, they are just so messy.
Bernard of Clairvaux, abbot, mystic, co-founder of the Knights Templar.
What?
Right? I knew you'd like that. Yes, I'm here for you.
Thank you.
And founder of the Clairvaux Abbey said this upon first seeing Eleanor's new Henry. Quote, "From the devil they came, and to the devil they will return."
Yes!
And this is a reference to Erica. Would you like to do the honors?
Obviously, God, you did write this episode for me. So
I'm here for you, girl.
Look how red my face is right now. I'm just so excited. So, the notorious legend of the diabolical ancestress of the House of Anjou, a tale we have told this past Halloween, and which was repeated often, even then, by multiple members of the family to gain notoriety and inspire this fear.
Can you imagine being like, yeah, totally related to the devil?
It's just wild to me, but was also not an uncommon thing. So one of the first Angevin counts was said to have returned from a vast journey with a new wife. Some say it's the Crusades, some leave it vague.
Yeah, it's not clear.
It's not clear, but it's pretty pointed. The beautiful Melusine, who bore him 4 children, all was well, except she would not take the sacrament, and her husband was frustrated and his father was pissed, so a plan was hatched for 4 strong nights to prevent her from leaving the church when it came time to drink the blood of Christ. As she was about to be force-fed the Eucharist, Melusine tore away from the knights and then flew out the window, shrieking as she went.
So dramatic. I just love it.
You're so welcome. 2
of her children, I'm guessing the closest 2 at hand, I don't know, but 2 she took with her, and the others were left behind along with a very confused husband. Obviously, after this little outburst, she was declared to be the daughter of the devil himself, who could not, therefore, look upon or definitely not eat the body of Christ.
By Eleanor's time, this tale, or at least the Angevin connection with the devil, was generally considered to be fact because they were the most agitatingly temperamental people.
They were very temperamental.
On the face of the planet.
So the truth was rather less.
I'm shocked.
The Counts of Anjou were known as quote, a ferocious and warlike race. And they had a reputation for high-spirited energy.
Which fits Henry like a super sexy t-shirt.
Oh, and just wait, because it's going to get tight as a glove. Angevin
So many
counts
puns.
were renowned. Angevin counts were renowned for their hot temper, their voracious energy, military genius, political acumen, engaging charm, and robust constitution. I mean, they've got it all. Often at loggerheads with the church, their demonic ancestry was frequently pointed to as the reason. Despite that, many were noted for their generosity, although few were renowned for their piety, and lots of them were known for their cruelty. Generally an intelligent, cultivated, and literate bunch, the last of which was by no means common among even the dukes of this time period. They were considered a good-looking race, many of impressive stature with strong physiques and golden red hair.
And tall, baby, they were tall.
They were so tall, yes.
I mean, and you see this in a lot of the Plantagenets.
Henry was many, if frankly not all, of these things. Son of this Angevin line and the English throne, which he was due to inherit after his uncle died, he was a force to be reckoned with. So, in this sense, Eleanor chose well. At the very least, she chose different. Henry couldn't be more different from Louis.
Thank God for it.
18 or 19 years old, he was the Energizer Bunny. Strong, athletic, highly charismatic, handsome, though a little on the stocky side. And you know what? Here's my sidebar, and I thought about this a lot. He is always described that way, on the stocky side, which we all know means he tended to fat.
But is it a dad bod?
Is it a
I can get behind a dad bod.
I don't know, but fair enough. It is in right now. Every historian I read described his attention to his physical fitness because of his stocky physique, his early morning rides to prevent his stocky physique, his concern with diet thanks to his stocky physique. They all got that jab in, and I was going to leave it out. I was going to be the bigger woman. But then I thought, no. They always describe Eleanor as big-boned. She's always dwindled down to her hair, her face, her figure. And women generally are always presented with a physical disclaimer so that we know how to judge their actions based on what she looked like. So yeah, he was flippin' stocky. But you know what? He did exercise a lot, refrained from gluttony, like he really watched what he ate. And still, he was, according to the Rex Factor podcast, the Rexiest of Rexes in England's Rex history.
Big-boned and stocky. You know what that sounds like to me? A really hot rugby player.
Oh, yeah. This guy was not running cross-country marathons.
They are stocky.
He was fighting with muscles.
Okay.
Big-boned and stocky, they were still one hot ticket. The couple originally met the previous year when Henry and his dad were at a conference and Eleanor was still the Queen of France. Did they meet then and plot this whole thing up together? Were they playing the long game? Because as soon as Eleanor arrives in Poitiers, post-divorce and multiple abduction attempts, she sends Henry a message to come to her. And it literally says that.
They legitimately had meetings together under the guise that they were talking about this treaty they were signing. Originally, Henry's dad, Geoffrey of Anjou, was there, but he was in the end stages of his life and would fly out of the room in a, quote, fit of black bile, leaving Eleanor and the young Henry to do as they will.
Do as they please.
Just saying. They also had met once before when the young Henry, 11, but...
And there is that age difference. I mean, she is 30 and he is 18.
But you know what?
Doesn't matter.
We make exceptions for men all the time. Good honor.
Agreed. Henry does just what Eleanor asks. He rushes straight to her, and they get married on May 18th, 1152.
A mere 8 weeks after divorcing Louis.
Amicably divorcing. But yeah, it's not an awesome look, but it's kind of necessary. As we touched on earlier, she was at risk as an unmarried landed heiress. She needed someone soon. So the future King of England isn't an awful idea.
Not
and it would probably have made her chuckle to say the least, for Louis to be jealous. And she couldn't have chosen someone better if her aim was to piss off her ex.
This is the stuff that enemies to lovers romance is made of. A marriage contract trope. We love a book talk trope.
Yeah, I think a lot of people romanticize her relationship with Henry, and I think it was quite sexual, to be perfectly frank. Mm-hmm. But while she had just come from the court of the troubadours, it doesn't mean that romance, in that sense, was ever really in the cards for her.
She had learned that that was not quite the reality that she initially thought.
Right, and I mean, she was such an important figure for the time. Her physical self carried such weight and such importance. I don't think there was any way she could just marry a farmer if she fell in love with him. Like, that just was, well, she'd have to meet one first, but you know, it's fine. So Henry was a very good choice from her point of view. He was handsome, young, and the future king of England. He was also ambitious and driven, just like her. Plus, he came with Normandy, which combined nicely with Aquitaine, and together, even before considering England, they had a heck of a lot more land than Louis.
I can't even pretend to be upset for poor monkish Louis. His ex-wife marries one of his enemies. His enemy now controls more of his own country than he does. It's just the most glorious revenge. You took 15 years! 15 of my best years!
To Louis' credit, he does attempt an attack on Henry in response to this embarrassing new situation, but he is just no match for the guy.
Which is even more embarrassing!
Further humiliation pops out a year later when Eleanor gives birth to a son. That's right, she gave Louis 2 daughters in 15 years, and Henry gets a boy in 9 months flat.
Sorry, they were totally doing it in Paris.
I mean, she was probably hoping that would get her a son. Maybe this guy will do it.
This is my Roman Empire. They were hooking up in Paris.
You are allowed to think that, and it is definitely supposed by many a historian.
I think that's more realistic and more probable than the Hunkle.
I definitely think that they made this connection in Paris, and she was like, I'm miserable, and he's like, hey, look what our 2 lands would do. Mm-hmm. She's beautiful, he's handsome. I think they made that decision a year prior, but I don't know that she consummated it. That would be an enormous risk on her part.
I don't know.
They get married. They get this son within 9 months, and poor Louis hasn't even found someone new yet.
Oh, dear.
So, William pops out first, followed by another boy, a girl, 2 more boys, 2 more girls, and lastly, another boy.
I love this for her.
And
this is such a slap in the face.
It is.
And I just, good for her.
Adding insult to injury, the year after baby boy number 1 popped out, King Stephen of England pops off, leaving the throne wide open for Henry, now Henry II of England.
Meaning that on the 19th of December, 1154, Eleanor becomes the Queen of England.
She was the first and only woman to ever wear the French and English crown, but not simultaneously.
At just 30 years old, like, that's an accomplishment.
I wish I could now laud you with Eleanor's amazing deeds as the Q of E, but actually, we don't have very much. She's an incredibly famous person whom we know very little about. She just didn't leave a tangible or written record, which makes sense for the time because she was surrounded by men. But it does make it hard to trace her first decade or more as the Queen of England. She acts as regent from time to time in England, and some charters in Aquitaine from this time bear her name, but generally she seems to have played a limited role even in her home duchy during this first decade of marriage.
I mean, probably because she was birthing an entire soccer team.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And her mother-in-law at the time was very involved.
This doesn't sound familiar at all.
I mean, this girl did not have good luck with mothers-in-law. Empress Matilda, who held on to that empress title until the bitter end, was one of the few people Henry II confided in. While she'd been a truly terrible politician during her own bid for the English throne, she had definitely learned from her mistakes, and she was Henry's trusted advisor and really the permanent regent within Normandy.
Do you think these two would have been best buds or mortal enemies?
I'm not sure. They only met a few times because...
And do you think that was on purpose?
I mean, they only met a few times for a few reasons, actually. Partly because Matilda was left behind in Normandy while Eleanor and Henry went off to claim the English throne. And then on top of that, when he would travel back and forth, Eleanor often didn't go because of just birthing someone.
Yeah.
And then she would probably go to Aquitaine if she were to travel across the channel and go back to check on her own lands.
And furthermore, having Matilda come with them to claim the English throne cannot be a good look after the Civil War.
Totally.
No one wants to see you in that role.
You were voted off the island.
Literally.
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 But I think they probably would have gotten along. I can't imagine that Matilda would have been thrilled with a 30-year-old daughter-in-law for her 18 or 19-year-old son. However, Eleanor brought a lot to the table.
I think, personally, that they would have been better friends or allies had they not both had vying attentions for Henry.
Yes.
If Henry was out of the picture and they met like on a girls' trip,
great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They would rule the world. But the fact that they are both vying for a man's attention, his ear and the influence, I think that would have put them on edge.
I concur. And I think that while Normandy was not stuck-up Paris, the uptight Paris, it was also not Aquitaine.
Nothing was.
That still would have been a bit of a culture shock. So Eleanor's last child, John, is born in 1166, making her roughly 42 years old when she births her 10th child.
Jesus.
During the Middle Ages.
You want to talk about a powerful hoo-ha? Sorry, Anna Kamina, but 10
This
babies?
woman knows what to do with that. But I mean, people at 42 now, it's
35 is a geriatric pregnancy.
I know.
Which,
but anyway,
I hate
to
that
do
term.
it in the Middle Ages, people must have been shocked.
Yeah.
She was just spitting them out. The following year, her mother-in-law died, meaning that all of a sudden, Eleanor isn't pregnant, giving birth or nursing, and Henry is looking around for a new confidant, and frankly, someone else to help look over his French holdings. Aquitaine, specifically, did not like the yoke of England/Normandy and was very hard to govern.
I'm shocked.
So Eleanor departs England for France, returning home to Aquitaine to rule as Henry's lieutenant.
And it could have been a purely pragmatic decision, or they might have wanted some space after 8 kids back to back, because God knows, I only have one, and sometimes, the space is nice.
I just need 10 minutes by myself in the closet. Thank you so much.
Been there, done that this week.
Same. So their relationship has been highly romanticized, but we really don't know how they felt about each other at any point in their marriage. It was, frankly, transactional from the start. But 8 kids, I mean, they clearly had a physical something.
It wasn't a one and done, that's for sure.
They got an heir and a spare.
In fact, they had too many children.
Too many children. It became a problem, and we're going to get there next
A
week.
huge problem.
And they were similar, and I think probably got along really well as friends and teammates. But was she ready for a break? Probably. I mean, Henry was a lot. Like, he barely slept, couldn't stand still. Unless he was sitting on a horse, you could not make him be in the same place. He was such a handful that my guess is she just wanted to breathe by herself in Aquitaine. So she goes to Aquitaine to rule it in her own name, but also as a part of the familial holdings between herself and Henry. And they're still allies. But that won't last forever. And next week, we'll learn how an amicable parting leads to imprisonment and death.
Eventually.
And with that, I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erica, and we are Pithily Yours.
This episode is brought to you by the Pithy Chronicle, LLC. The Pithy Chronicle is intended for education, entertainment, and non-commercial purposes. Any views or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the owner may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity. While we offer lots of sarcasm, this podcast does not offer any advice or services. Listening to this podcast may induce fits of laughter, unexpected distraction, or uncontrollable rage at the subjects, hopefully not at us. We hope you learned something today. If not, so sorry. Please be advised we are not experts in the following fields: medical, legal, financial, technological, thermonuclear engineering, submarine warfare, neuroscience, or cat husbandry. Thanks for listening to our little disclaimer. Just covering our history-loving asses. Bye!